How to manage your money like the 1%. It's not about how much you make, it's about how you manage what you make. That single line separates the top 1% from everyone else. Most people think wealth is about earning more, the big salary, the side hustles, the multiple income streams. And yes, earning matters. But earning is just the first half of the story. The real secret, the part most people miss, is in how you handle your money once it arrives. Because the truth is, even a huge income can disappear fast if it's managed badly. And even an average income can grow into something incredible if it's managed smartly. Think about it. We all know someone who earns a lot but always seems broke. Paycheck arrives and it's gone in days. Then there's someone else who doesn't earn nearly as much but always seems calm, secure, and is building something bigger every year. That's not luck, that's management. And that's exactly how the top 1% operate. They don't just react to money, they direct it. Every dollar has a job, a purpose, a plan. The simplest, most powerful system that reflects how they think is what I call the 75-10-15 rule. And when you understand it, it completely changes how you see money. This isn't about restriction, it's about structure, control, clarity, and calm. Comment 75-10-15 if you're ready to manage money like the top 1%. Let's break it down. Number 1, the 75%, foundation without expansion. Let me break down exactly how this works, starting with the foundation that most people get completely wrong. The first 75% of your income goes toward the things you need to live, the fundamentals. Rent, groceries, utilities, transportation, your phone bill, insurance, the core things that keep your life running. These are your foundation expenses, the non-negotiables that maintain your day-to-day existence. Sounds simple, right? But here's where most people go catastrophically wrong. They let this category swallow everything. The moment they get a raise, they upgrade something. A bigger apartment because I deserve it. A newer phone because the old one is slow. Fancier meals because I'm finally making real money. The problem? Their lifestyle expands as fast as their income grows, and they never actually move forward. They're running faster on the treadmill but staying in exactly the same place financially. This is what we call lifestyle inflation, and it's one of the biggest wealth killers out there. But that's just the obvious part. What I'm about to say is what makes the difference between people who build wealth and people who spend their lives wondering why they can't get ahead. The top 1% think about this completely differently. They set a limit. Even as their income grows, sometimes dramatically, they live comfortably within that 75% zone. They don't deprive themselves, but they don't let lifestyle expansion consume every dollar of increased income either. This creates something incredibly powerful: space. Financial breathing room. Because here's the truth that most people never grasp. Wealth doesn't come from what you earn, it comes from what you keep. When you consciously cap your lifestyle at 75%, something almost magical happens. You notice peace. You're not scrambling at the end of every month, checking your account balance with anxiety. You're not stressing over every bill that arrives. You know what your essentials are, and they're covered. That's step 1 on the path to real wealth. Stability. There's ancient wisdom about this that's been true for thousands of years. Proverbs 21:20 says, "The wise store up choice food and oil, but fools gulp theirs down." The modern version? Fools let that 75% become 95% the moment their income increases. They gulp down every dollar. Buddhist teaching tells us, he who knows contentment is rich. The top 1% are content within that 75%. The rest goes to building their future. The Roman philosopher Seneca wrote, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more, that is poor." If you let your lifestyle expand to match your income, you're always poor, regardless of how much you earn. Let me give you a real example of how this plays out. Imagine someone earning $60,000 a year after taxes. Using the 75% rule, that's $45,000 for living expenses, about $3,750 per month. That's plenty for a comfortable, stable life in most places. Now they get a raise to $80,000. Here's where the paths diverge. The average person immediately upgrades their lifestyle to match their new income. $60,000 in living expenses, about $5,000 per month. Nicer apartment, newer car, eating out more often. They feel like they're finally making it. But someone with a 1% mindset, they might bump their lifestyle up slightly to $50,000 annually, $4,167 per month, even though they could easily afford more. They're still living well, still comfortable, but they've created $30,000 per year for their cushion fund and are investing instead of just $20,000. That extra $10,000 per year over 20 years invested at 8% returns is a difference of over $200,000. $200,000 just from not upgrading their lifestyle to match every raise. Here's your actionable step, and I want you to do this today. Calculate your 75% right now. Take your monthly after-tax income and multiply it by 0.75. That's your lifestyle budget. Then list all your monthly expenses. Actually write them down. If you're over 75%, identify what needs to be cut. If you're under, congratulations, you have space to build. Go back through the last 3 months of spending. Separate your needs from your wants. Be honest. Then make this commitment. The next time you get a raise, keep your lifestyle at exactly the same level for at least 1 year. Let that extra income flow entirely into your 10% and 15% buckets. Here's a story that illustrates this perfectly. I know an executive who was earning $150,000 a year, but consciously lived like he was earning $100,000. His friends thought he was cheap. They'd joke about his college student apartment and his 10-year-old car. But 10 years later, he had over $500,000 invested and retired early at 48. Those same friends, still working, still stressed, still living paycheck to paycheck despite their 6-figure salaries and luxury apartments. He told me, I didn't sacrifice my lifestyle. I sacrificed the appearance of success to build actual success. They wanted to look wealthy in their 30s. I wanted to be wealthy for the rest of my life. The principle the 1% understand is this. Capping your lifestyle at 75% isn't restriction. It's liberation. Every dollar you don't spend upgrading your lifestyle is a dollar working to buy your freedom. You're not giving up quality of life. You're choosing freedom over appearances. And that choice compounds into something incredible. Wait, there's something you need to pay attention to if you don't want one emergency to destroy years of progress. Number 2. The 10% emergency fund. Now the next 10%. This is where your safety net comes in. I call it the cushion fund, and it's your personal insurance policy, your emergency parachute. Life has a way of throwing surprises at us. Job loss, medical emergencies, car repairs, and sudden bills that appear out of nowhere. And if you don't have a cushion, even a small problem can send you spiraling into debt or complete panic. One unexpected expense becomes a crisis that derails years of progress. So here's what the top 1% do. They built a 5-month cushion fund. The math is simple. Take your total monthly expenses, rent, bills, groceries, everything from that 75% we just talked about, and multiply it by 5. That's your target. That's the amount that can carry you through tough times without fear. When you have that cushion in place, something shifts inside you. You walk differently. You breathe differently. Because you know that if life hits hard, you've got time. You're not desperate. You're not one paycheck away from disaster. You can think clearly and make good decisions instead of panicked ones. Wait, there's something you need to pay attention to if you don't want one emergency to destroy years of progress. Most people keep no emergency fund at all. Or they keep 1 month of expenses and think, that's enough, right? But here's the brutal reality. 1 month gives you just enough to feel a false sense of security. 5 months gives you an actual buffer against life's chaos. It's the difference between reacting from desperation and responding from a position of strength. But here's the interesting twist that most financial advice never tells you. Once you've built that 5-month emergency fund, that 10% doesn't just stop working. You repurpose it. Instead of letting it keep piling up in an account, doing nothing, you turn it into what I call guilt-free enjoyment. This is where you use money to recharge your energy and motivation. Take that trip you've been wanting. Sign up for a course that helps you grow. Buy a better laptop that makes your work easier. Invest in experiences or tools that genuinely improve your life. Because here's what the top 1% understand that most people miss. Money that only works for bills burns you out. But money that also supports your happiness and growth, that keeps you inspired to keep going. That's the mindset of balance. The wealthy know that building wealth isn't about constant saving and sacrifice. It's about sustainability. You can't just build wealth, you have to enjoy life while you're building it. That's what keeps you consistent over the long haul. That's what prevents you from giving up when it gets hard. There's ancient wisdom here that's often misunderstood. Ecclesiastes 7:14 says, "When times are good, be happy, but when times are bad, consider this. God has made the one as well as the other." The wisdom? Prepare during the good times so you can survive the bad times. Think about Joseph in Egypt. He stored grain during 7 years of abundance so Egypt could survive 7 years of famine. The modern version? Use your 10% to build a cushion during your abundant employment years so you can survive an unemployment famine without panic. Even the fable of the ant and the grasshopper has a twist people forget. Yes, the ant stored for winter, but here's what matters. The ant also enjoyed the summer. The lesson isn't to never enjoy anything, it's to prepare first, then enjoy without guilt. That's balance. Let me give you a real example. Say you're earning $5,000 per month after taxes. Your 75% living expenses are $3,750. Your 10% cushion is $500 monthly. To build a 5-month fund, you need $3,750 times 5. That's $18,750. At $500 per month, you'll hit that target in about 37 months. Roughly 3 years. I know that sounds like a long time. But here's the thing. Those 3 years are going to pass whether you're building this cushion or not. And once you reach that goal, that same $500 per month becomes your guilt-free enjoyment fund. That's $6,000 a year for trips, courses, experiences, whatever recharges you without any guilt because your foundation is secure. Here's your actionable step. Calculate your 5-month target right now. Take your monthly essentials from the 75% exercise and multiply by 5. Open a separate high-yield savings account. Keep it completely separate from your checking and label it Emergency Fund, Do Not Touch. Automate 10% of your income into it every month. Track your progress toward that 5-month goal. Once you've reached it, redirect that 10% to a guilt-free enjoyment fund. The rule is simple. You can spend from this fund on anything that genuinely recharges you, and you're not allowed to feel guilty about it. Why? Because your foundation is rock solid. Let me share a story that brings this home. I know a woman who spent 3 years building a $20,000 emergency fund. She felt proud but honestly exhausted from the mentality of only saving, never enjoying. Then she unexpectedly lost her job. That cushion saved her life. She found a new position in 4 months without panic, without desperate decisions, without going into debt. Once she was employed again, she shifted that 10% to guilt-free enjoyment. She took a dream trip to Italy that she'd been putting off for years. She told me, "That emergency fund saved my financial life during the crisis. That Italy trip saved my soul afterward. I needed both." That's when I finally understood. Balance isn't a luxury, it's what makes wealth sustainable. The principle the 1% live by is this. Build cushions, not to hoard, but to create a foundation for both security and joy. Wealth without enjoyment is just delayed poverty. Build the cushion first, then enjoy the freedom it gives you without guilt. But that's just the surface. What's behind it is what will startle people about how the last 15% changes everything. Number 3. The 15%, investing for future. Now the last 15%, and this is where everything changes. This is the part that separates the financially free from the financially stuck for the rest of their lives. This 15% is your future. This is where your money stops being something you work for and starts being something that works for you. Here's the part that most people completely underestimate: time. The earlier you start using that 15% for investing, the more powerful it becomes. Not because you're putting in more money, but because you're giving your money more time to grow. Let me put this into perspective with a story that will change how you think about investing forever. Imagine two people. Let's call them Maya and Jordan. Maya starts investing at age 25. She puts in $500 every month and earns an average return of 7% a year. Nothing fancy, just a basic index fund tracking the market. Jordan, on the other hand, starts later at age 35, but he doubles his investment, putting in $1,000 every month with the same 7% return. He's putting in twice as much as Maya, so he should catch up and pass her, right? But here's the crazy part that shocks people every time. By the time they both reach age 60, Maya, who started earlier with half the amount, ends up with significantly more money than Jordan. How is that possible? Because of compounding. It sounds simple, but the hardest part is what's about to be told next. Compounding doesn't reward how much you invest. It rewards how long you invest. It's like a snowball rolling downhill. At the start, it's small, barely moving, but as it rolls, it picks up more snow. It gets bigger, and the bigger it gets, the faster it grows. The earlier you start, the longer that snowball gets to roll, and the more massive it becomes. That's why the top 1% don't wait until later to invest. They don't wait until they feel rich or until they've got everything figured out. They start small, but they start early. They understand that time is the secret ingredient that turns small amounts into life-changing wealth. So what do they invest in? They focus on owning assets, things that grow in value or pay them back over time. That could be stocks, index funds, rental properties, or even building a small business that generates passive income. They don't let their money take a nap in a savings account earning 0.5%. They make it work quietly, steadily, and relentlessly in the background. And here's what they're really buying with that 15 cent. They're not buying flashy cars or expensive watches. They're buying time. Time to choose how they spend their days. Time to make decisions from a place of peace instead of pressure. That's the real wealth. There's ancient wisdom about this that goes back thousands of years. In the biblical parable of the talents, the servant who invested his master's money and doubled it was praised as good and faithful. But the servant who buried his money in the ground to keep it safe, he was called wicked and lazy. Even 2,000 years ago, people understood investing is wise, hoarding is foolish. Proverbs 13:11 says, "Wealth gained hastily will dwindle, but whoever gathers little by little will increase it." That's the 15% rule, gathering little by little consistently over time. Benjamin Franklin put it even more simply: money makes money, and the money that money makes money. That's compound interest in one sentence. Let me show you the real math so you can see what's actually possible. Imagine you're 30 years old, earning $60,000 a year after taxes. Your 15% for investing is $9,000 annually. That's $750 per month. If you invest that consistently until age 65, that's 35 years, at an average 8% return, which is the historical stock market average, you'll have approximately $2.1 million. Using the 4% retirement withdrawal rule, which generates $84,000 per year in passive income. That's financial freedom built from just 15% of your income. Now here's the devastating comparison. What if you wait 10 years? You're 40 now instead of 30. Same $750 per month, same 8% return, but only 25 years instead of 35. You end up with about $700,000 instead of $2.1 million. By waiting just 1 decade, you lost $1.4 million. That's the cost of "I'll start later." Here's your actionable step. Calculate your 15% investment potential right now. Take your monthly after-tax income and multiply it by 0.15. That's your monthly investment amount. Then open an investment account today, not next month, not when you have more money. Today. Choose a low-cost index fund through Vanguard, Fidelity, or Schwab. Set up an automatic monthly transfer and commit to never touching it. Let it compound. Even if you can't hit the full 15% yet, start with 5% and increase it by 1% every 6 months. Progression matters more than perfection. And here's a critical rule. Every time you get a raise, increase your investment percentage. Got a 3% raise? Add at least 1.5% to your investment rate. Let me share one final story that captures this perfectly. I know a man who at age 25 chose to invest $400 per month instead of upgrading from his modest apartment. His friends mocked him for living like a broke college student when he could clearly afford better. Fast forward 30 years to age 55. He had $1.8 million invested and retired early. Those same friends? Still working, still stressed, still living paycheck to paycheck, despite earning higher salaries throughout their careers. He told me something I'll never forget. They chose to look wealthy in their 20s and 30s. I chose to be wealthy in my 50s and beyond. I lived like no one else would, so now I live like no one else can. The principle is this: that 15% isn't a sacrifice, it's delayed gratification that compounds into permanent freedom. The top 1% understand that you can live like the 99% now and struggle later, or you can live strategically now and thrive forever. Time is the secret ingredient that transforms everything. And the clock is ticking, whether you start today or not. Do you see anything unusual? The answer is right here, when you put all 3 percentages together. When you start following the 75-10-15 rule, everything begins to shift. You'll feel more in control. You'll stop being reactive with money. No more "where did it all go" moments at the end of the month. Instead, you'll know exactly where every dollar is going and why. And the best part? You won't feel guilty about spending, because your spending has structure. It has purpose. Think of it like a 3-legged stool. The 75% keeps your life stable. The 10% protects and energizes you. The 15% builds your future. Take away any leg and it wobbles. Keep all 3 strong and it stands solid no matter what life throws your way. Here's something important. You don't need to be rich to start this. You don't even need everything perfectly figured out. You can begin right now with whatever you have. Even if you can't hit the exact percentages yet, the mindset is what matters. Live on less than you make. Build a cushion before the storm hits. Start investing, even if it's small, because wealth doesn't appear overnight. It builds quietly in the background while everyone else chases shiny distractions. It's built through habits, the boring, consistent kind that compound over time. So here's my challenge. Take a look at your income this week and break it down. Where is your 75% actually going? How close are you to that 5-month cushion? Are you using your 15% to build your future, or is it just disappearing? Comment 75-10-15 right now if this gave you that light bulb moment. Share it with someone who needs to hear this. Because once you learn to manage money like the 1%, you'll never go back to living paycheck to paycheck. You'll finally understand what true financial freedom feels like. Calm, clear, and in control.